When it comes to healing your ulcerative colitis, only do what is necessary and not what you're bullied by the doctors. I have learnt this the hard way over the last 12 years of having UC. So the first time that I went and saw the IBD specialists, one of the first things they asked for is a colonoscopy. Now, if you don't want to know what a colonoscopy is, it's basically where they show a camera up your butt and then they take loads of swabs and they've got a camera up there so they can see, obviously, if there's any inflammation, if there's any little polyps, anything like that that's going off. Now, my first time was horrific. So what you have to do, first of all, you have to take this medication where you like about 1.5 liters to 2 liters of this medication that makes you proper shit. Now, you generally have been shitting loads anyway because you've got inflammation and you are having a flare. But this seems to irritate it 10 times worse. So it makes you want to go to the toilet even more. Then because you have to drink it at night, it then makes you go to the toilet even more through the night. It's horrific. And then the next day you've got to take another 1.5 liters to 2 liters of this medication because it needs to make sure that your bowels are fully cleared out for when you have the colonoscopy that day. So I got to the hospital, sat there waiting. My appointment should have been at like 11 o'clock in the morning. Sat there waiting, thinking I feel very tired, fatigued. I feel drained. I feel lightheaded because obviously it's making you feel dehydrated because it's pushing all the water and stuff out of you. You're not allowed to eat anything from the night before. So from about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock when you start drinking the medicine, you can't eat anything then until you have the procedure. So I was supposed to have mine done 11 o'clock that morning. And it wasn't until 1 o'clock I got seen. And then they have to actually do the procedure. So when you're there, you are wide awake on this bed with your ass hanging out of the bed. And then right in front of you is this massive 52-inch TV where you're watching the inside of your bowels, basically with this camera going round, without all while what they're doing is pumping air into your intestines, which feels absolutely disgusting because it just feels like you get your worst ever trap wind and then you times that by 10. And that's sort of how it feels. It feels so bad. All you want to do is fart, but you can't get it out. Then they're playing around, so moving the camera around like this, which is then moving in your arsehole. It's just horrific. Now, don't get me wrong. They are necessary. Because obviously the way you get diagnosed, they can do the test to make sure the inflammation in your blood and your stool, but it doesn't give them an actual indication of what it could be. So there's different types of colitis. Mine's pancolitis, so it basically affects all of the large colon. So I wouldn't have known that unless I had the colonoscopy. But the problem about this is the doctors seem to recommend these colonoscopies a lot. And I don't know why. Now, don't get me wrong. If you haven't had one maybe in a few years, there is supposed to be more likelihood that you're going to get cancer if you've got IBD. So they like to make sure they keep checking on you. But when they do it quite repeatedly and they are doing it very often, there is more risk factors to you having it done than not having it done. So this is where it comes down to the preference of only doing things that are necessary. If you've had a colonoscopy within 1 year, maybe even 2 years, you generally shouldn't have another one. If your doctor keeps asking you to have another one and another one, the risks of having that done, you can end up perforating your bowel, which then you could end up losing your colon. There's not something that's irreversible. If that the camera goes around and it perforates your bowel, then you can end up losing it. Now, that risk there doesn't weigh up the amount of risk to obviously not have it done. Now, I brought this up because the last time I spoke to my IBD specialist, and guess what they asked for? Yep. You guessed it, they wanted another colonoscopy. Now, I've had a fair few. I've had UC now for 12 years. So for me, the colonoscopies have just been horrific. Each time that I've had one, I've not been able to get put to sleep. So I've been awake through the whole procedure. And at the end of the day, it's not pleasant and it's not good. I swear these doctors just like seeing the inside of my arsehole. But instantly, as soon as he said it, I was like, no, I don't need a colonoscopy. And they're like, why? I'm like, because I'm not showing any symptoms. I don't have urgency, don't have blood, don't have mucus. I don't feel unwell. So why the fucking hell would I want to put a camera up my ass, take all this medication that's going to irritate my bowels, which could potentially then make me have symptoms? For what? For you to check in my asshole? Because you think that's the best solution to have. Now, I'd understand if I had not had a flare for a few years, so it might have been 2-3 years, and then I had a bit of a flare, they'd be like, okay, let's have a quick look. fair enough. But when someone is not showing any symptoms whatsoever, it just seems to me backwards that they've asked you to do this procedure. So only, as I've said, only do what is necessary. And the way they do that is don't get bullied by the doctors. The doctors are very, very good at forcing you to do things that you don't want to do. Do you want to, well, make sure that you've got a colonoscopy. Well, I don't really want one. Yeah, but you really need one. You better have one. No, I don't want a colonoscopy. Medication. You need to be on this medication. This is going to be the only thing that's going to help you cure and get in remission. Yeah, but the thing is, I want to try a different route. Yeah, but you'll never ever do it. There's no cure whatsoever. I want to try a different route. Another way to make sure that you're only doing things that are necessary is by using the BRAIN acronym. B stands for benefits. So you ask them, what is the benefit of doing this? So obviously if it's a colonoscopy, what's the benefit? Well, we'll see what's going on in your intestines and basically see if you're inflamed of your UC or if it's something else. There's the benefit. Now the risks. What are the risks of doing the procedure? So that's the R. So what are the risks? They'll then go through all the risks that could happen. Then there's A, which is alternatives. Okay, so what happens if I don't do the colonoscopy? What alternatives do I have? And this comes back to obviously the last colonoscopy that they offered. I point blank refused, but then they came up with a different thing, which was to do an ultrasound. Now an ultrasound is basically like they do with like when a woman is pregnant, you basically just do that over across the intestines to make sure that the lining of the intestines hasn't gone past a certain amount, and they look at the blood flow and all this and other, but you don't need any sort of like fluid to clear you out. All you got to make sure is that you don't eat anything that morning, and then they can get a good ultrasound. So that's an alternative. So it's if I didn't say to my IBD specialist, is there an alternative to this? They would have never ever recommended it. The next one is I, intuition. This is where it comes down to you. You are the person who is in control of your own body. If you believe that this isn't the thing that is going to get you either into remission, or the colonoscopy is not a good thing, or this and other, you have to use your own intuition and think, you know what, the benefits and the risks, there are benefits, but the risks outweigh the benefits by like far. There is an alternative that I'd rather try first, so what I might try and do is that. So you have to use your own initiative. Then there is the last letter, N, which means nothing. So you can always ask them, right then, so if I decide not to do anything whatsoever, what will happen? And they might just say, well, not really much, or you might get a bit more inflamed. You might end up having to have your colon removed. Whatever it is, they might end up saying that whatever it is. So don't ever think that you have to do something. Try and use this acronym every time you speak to your doctor if they recommend to do something. So if they recommend to do obviously medication, colonoscopies, if they want to do this and other, try and keep this in your head because this is an amazing tool to use. Now, I have got all these sort of tools and loads of other things inside of my 90-day regenerative UC healing protocol. If you want to go into depth on how to heal your UC naturally, then top link in the description. It goes into all these different ways that you can speak to your doctor and get what you want from the medical professions, while also doing what you want to do and not having to be bullied by the doctors. That kind of leads me on to the next thing, which is about medications. Should be used strategically. So that means you are in the power of using the medications how you want to use them. You don't have to be bullied into using medications that you don't want to use. So for me, the last time I had a flare-up, they said to me automatically was, you need to go on the vedolizumab, which is the injections, the biologicals, the whatever you want to call them, the infusions. But I didn't want to go on them because I wanted to try things differently, to do different things differently, like the carnivore diet and things like that. But all they want to do is give you the medication. Now, if I was in an absolutely shit state, like back in January 2023, when I was in hospital for 8 days and the inflammation wasn't being reduced and I had the threat of losing my colon because it was that bad, then that time I went on the biologicals because for me, that just made perfect sense because I had a lot of stress that were going on that year and I really needed to make sure that the inflammation was going to get reduced and I was going to get into some sort of normal state. So I agreed. But I used it strategically because I knew there'd be a lot of stress for them 8 months. So what I did was use it for the 8 months, learn about the carnivore elimination diet, then I thought to myself, you know what, the stress is finished, it's all over with. I'm going to come off this medication, come off it, start the carnivore elimination diet straight away, and boom, bada boom, bada boo. I've been in remission now for 22 months, no meds, no symptoms. So I used them strategically and I did it how I wanted to do it. Because the doctors wanted me to be on that long term, which wasn't in my best interest. Then this leads me on to the final thing of how to make sure you're doing things that are necessary, is to take a few steps back and to look at the pros and cons of doing it. So this comes back into a bit like the brain acronym, but if you're looking back and forth, the pros of this, like I did with the Vendolizumab, the pros were if I went on that, then I could have reduced the inflammation, stopped obviously having a large colon removed, and then I knew I was going to have that much stress that if I'd ended up having it was too stressful, at least I was on something that would have like kind of masked the symptoms a bit and numbed the symptoms, so I wouldn't have, if I had another flare, to have such a big flare. So that was the pros. The cons were obviously that they could fuck up my immune system, that you could end up having like skin cancers and you could have this and other. So the cons were pretty damn bad, but the pros would have kept me in a decent place so I didn't lose my colon. So I kind of took the risks of that over the cons. So as you can see, when you take control of how you want to heal, you can get into clinical remission and you can heal your UC. Now, as I said earlier, I have been in remission now for 22 months using the carnivore elimination diet, but there's so many other things underlying that people with UC have that you'd never ever get told about when you're speaking to your doctor. They give you some bullshit thing saying, oh, it's just your white blood cells are attacking you and that's what's causing inflammation. But they don't go into all these other things like SIBO, histamine, leaky gut, it could be mast cell, it could be all these sort of different things that's going off, but they don't fucking tell you. So top link in the description, it goes into all these other things to help you heal. And as I said earlier, it also has a module on how to navigate the medical system to use it to your advantage. Because at the end of the day, if you've got to use it, you've got to use it how you want to, not how you're bullied by the doctor. Now, I want you to let me know in the comments below if you ever felt like you were pressured or bullied into doing something that you didn't really want to do by the doctors. And if you're liking the content, then like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.